Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Super excited for our next episode, talking with TGE. We have Ching-yuan Hu joining us today. You might know her from the catering circuit, but that's not what we're going to talk today about. We're going to talk about a new venture that she is working on and how we can best support her and be a great peer support for our friends in the industry. So Ching, yeah, I think everybody kind of knows you specifically from your catering background. And then for those of us who are lucky enough to follow you on social media, I think your Instagram has probably been my favorite, excuse my French, food porn page for years now. So I would love to learn more kind of about your passion for cooking and how that began.
You bet. Growing up, I was very fortunate. Both of my parents cooked. So it wasn't like when one would go out of town on business that we were stuck with like just carry out and, crap food. Like we always had really delicious homemade meals. So I never really cooked until my dad got sick when I was in college. And so mom was cooking for him. He was very opinionated with mom. I mean, like, when you've been married that long, like there's no holds barred. But I was daddy's little girl, so I would figure out what he needed to have and cook like the more dietary sensitive stuff for him and bring it over because he wouldn't complain when I cooked because he couldn't complain. So that's actually how I kind of got into food. And then also having friends that I had one of my friends back home was vegan. And so when we would go to potluck, she wouldn't have, like, she'd always bring her own stuff because everything else always had some sort of animal byproduct, so she couldn't eat it. So my goal was to always provide something that she could also have too. So she's not just I mean, it's no fun to bring your own food to your own party, like, so that's kind of how all that spurred. I was in print sales for about 10 years back home and decided that I wanted to do a full industry change and go culinary. I had a couple of server jobs back in Iowa City and decided to jump into culinary school and moved out to Denver to attend culinary school. I had about a year left when I got offered a position to be the KM for Eden Bar and Lounge over at 31st and Downing. It was a brand new women's bar and lounge, and the owners of the restaurant that I was serving at decided to take a chance on me because I was part of the community. I was in culinary school, and they said, "Hey, you want to be the KM?" And I'm like, "What? What exactly does that mean? Like, am I just cooking the food? Am I creating?" They're like, "You're creating and you're cooking." I'm like, okay. I'm like, I have no experience doing this. So they're like, "That's all right. Like, we'll figure it out together." So that's kind of how I got into the food scene out here, was kind of taking a leap into that in the 5 Points neighborhood. I think we were 5 years ahead of kind of food trends at that point in time. We had vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free offerings on the menu. And then the last year that we were open, I added in paleo because Janice and I had switched over to eating paleo ourselves, having gone through the food journey. And so, they decided to close Eden. And then I went to the event center side of things. And that's when I met the catering team. Kind of the rest is history, but that's kind of, my dad passed away when I was starting at the catering company. And when I came home from all of that, we watched Chef, the movie. And so that kind of inspired it'd be kind of fun to have a food truck someday, but kind of just like hung out in the universe. I was like, every time I looked at food trucks, they're like 60, 70, $80,000. I'm like, yeah, nah, like that's entirely too much money to spend. But obviously through the pandemic, events came to a screeching halt. And I was having some struggles because I'm used to being busy. I'm used to kind of being on the go 24/7, crushing goals and all that stuff. And so I took some time. I was kind of working reduced hours because I wanted to try to find what was going to make me happy because I was on that verge of like, is this worth it anymore? As far as my job, is this the field that I want to stay in? And literally the next day, somebody posted they had their food truck for sale, and it was at a very reasonable price point. It came fully loaded. And so that's kind of how the food truck began back in September.
That's awesome. That's some like serendipitous stuff right there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And so yeah, obviously you have with the food inspiration behind you from you, like you said, you were kind of talking about everything from vegan to paleo, to gluten and all of those things. And obviously that's a lots of people need that. Is that,
Mhm.
is that going to be kind of your cuisine, or what are you guys going to be, what are you going to be doing with your truck food?
You bet. So Look Who's Cooking is going to be Asian fusion comfort foods. So some fun spins on some flavors and food items from my background, like from my growing up, um, but made so that we're actually looking at right now being 100% gluten-free truck. So working on kind of a couple of final ingredients to try to figure out what's going to work best. Um, so we'll see. We will have vegan offerings, vegan and vegetarian offerings on the truck as well, where it's not you removed all this stuff, so now you have a bowl of lettuce, but actual delicious food.
Right, because I could, I don't need another bowl of lettuce for sure. So that's awesome. So yeah, definitely gonna pull some family and some, recipes and some inspiration from cooking with your family, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I know you mentioned, your father, and just in kind of things I've seen you post about him. I believe he was an artist. Is
That
that
is
right?
correct. Yeah,
Um,
he was an art professor at the University of Iowa for a long, long time.
yeah, it looks like there were sculptures and all sorts of beautiful things that he
Yes.
was a part of.
Hmm.
And one thing I noticed that when you've been documenting your journey of kind of building your business, which I think is super cool to see. I think a lot of us, when we started our businesses, like that was not a thing. So to see, you kind of like taking us through this journey, I think has been really cool. And especially when I look at like the graphics and the inspiration and like the art that's going to be on your truck, I think it's really it's got a lot of energy. It's obviously very bright and exciting. So you had mentioned you had kind of done some print stuff. Is art, something that is also inspirational and a part of your life here and what you're doing?
Yeah. I mean, art always has been kind of in the background. I am not a talented artist, in that sense. I like to cook and I like to like play with flavors and that type of thing. Janice has more of the graphic design background. We actually hired somebody, the team that did the wrap on the truck, actually they have an in-house designer that helped us with the creation of the branding. We kind of had some ideas in mind, but I think we were too close to the project that we wanted somebody from the outside who's done hundreds of food trucks, and with that experience of what's going to speak well at that large of a scale.
Sure. Yeah.
Leave that stuff to the pros.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a smart thing that you said there, like not being too close to a project, and, knowing, and also you just kind of mentioned it there, like knowing where your strengths lie,
Mhm.
and knowing when it's smart to hire and delegate and ask for help. And I think, yeah, a lot of us small business owners can say like, hey, I tried to do everything and like I did it at about 75%
Mhm.
quality versus, thinking about the people around you that have, these skills, like working with Janice, your partner. I gotta ask, the kitties on the truck, are those inspiration from your kitties?
Yes, they are.
Thought so.
Yep.
And obviously we, love seeing all of your animals, and that's great that you guys incorporating it into your business and what you're doing there. So let's think about like if you were like 2 years from now with this truck, right? So,
Mhm.
we're post pandemic, everybody's vaccinated, we're having food truck festivals, hopefully, we're having a good time. Like, where would you hope that this is taking you?
It's for me, I feel like what I have is different than a lot of the food trucks out there. It's we kept branding also a little instead of like having chopsticks and noodles and that type of thing in any of the logoed stuff, because if an opportunity arises to do a brunch pop-up and I want to go play and have fun, it lends itself to that. Um, my goal, at least like for the next 5 years, is to be able to do my full-time job as well as the food truck. So having a team that can help me with the food truck create the authentic flavors, authentic to me flavors. I'm not going to say it's authentic to specific regions because I think, that I haven't lived in China and Taiwan. I've visited, but that's only a portion of it. But somebody who also is in line with our overall goal and vision, to help kind of execute so that I can do kind of both things and just kind of have fun and have my creative outlets on the side too.
Yeah, and you had mentioned that earlier that you like to stay busy, and that's
Mhm.
obvious if you want to have a business and have people helping you out, and then you also want to continue working in catering as well. So
Yeah, you bet.
you'll
I love
be
events, like I think those in the event industry have gone through a lot this past year. But I'm excited to kind of get to the other side and see what we can all do together to be a stronger unit too.
And speaking of going through a lot, a question that I had for you is when I look at, and I obviously, get a lot of this stuff from social media that I want to ask you that when somebody's having a bad day or when someone's sick, I feel like 9 out of 10 times I see you posting on a part of, like you're either giving them positivity or some sort of, just some sort of good energy. And I've noticed that about you, and I'm always impressed by it, that I feel like you take the time to do this, and we're all so busy. I was like, Ching is taking the time out of her day to think about other people. And when I come across that, I'm always curious, if that's a little bit of your family influence. Is that just, how you live your life? Like, I know that's kind of a broad question, but I'd love for you to kind of elaborate on that, because I think you go out of your way to assist and pick up and be positive.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it was a lot with how we were raised. My dad being a college professor, his doors always open to his students, undergrad or grad students. End of the semesters, he would have, celebration parties in the backyard, and like his students were extension of the family. And I think some of that kind of carried on, like mom was always cooking multi-course meals and doing that type of stuff too. And it's just a way of showing, the world can suck sometimes, but the impact that we bring into it can really change somebody's day. Even if you can just make one person smile when they're having a crap day, you can just make them feel a little bit better. So.
That's awesome. Well, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Probably more than you even know. Like I said, it's something I've noticed for a while, and I've just never had the opportunity to kind of tell you that. That's amazing.
Thank you very much.
So you're very welcome, and thank you for doing it. It's what we need for sure. So since you're, like I said, you're trying to help people and, put positivity out there, like, I guess tell us, your vendor community that, we're trying to support each other. Like, what can we do to help you, with your food truck and what you're doing? Like, how can we help you?
You bet. So I was supposed to go, I'm supposed to be getting permitted next week. And then hopefully shortly after that, we'll do a couple of soft runs before we do the grand opening, shooting for sometime in March. So once I'm up and running, would love, shares on social media and that type of thing when we're going to be out and about. That's the biggest thing. Kind of following us on social media as well. I'm on Facebook and Instagram under Look Who's Cooking. And then we do have a Square site set up right now that you can either pre-purchase gift cards or be a supporter, where you can make a donation. In the future, kind of once I get up and running and stuff, that supporter is going to change over to a donate a meal. So people can donate money so that we can help feed those that may not have the financial resources to be able to have a hot meal.
That's awesome. I didn't know you guys were doing that. So that's really great. So guys, so I'll put links to Look Who's Cooking. I'll put those in the information on the video. So check it out, follow it. Also, those of you us that, manage venues that have opportunities for food trucks, obviously think of Ching and Look Who's Cooking. I think, as the summer progresses, hopefully, with COVID, again, food trucks are a really great outdoor COVID friendly option. That, we can still safely gather, we can still do these things. So we definitely, obviously, we got to keep you in mind for that stuff too.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in today on, I think this is our 4th episode. We're going to keep them coming. So again, follow Look Who's Cooking and check them out, and let's help Ching grow this business.
Awesome.